Hey guys, tonight we begin with something slow, a death by inches. We're diving into what life was really like during the siege of Leningrad, and when I say life, I'm using that word generously. For 872 days, 2 years and 4 months, you're trapped in a city surrounded by German and Finnish armies. There's no escape. Food is running out. Winter is coming. The bombs fall daily, and you're just trying to survive one more day. Forget the heroic war movies. Forget the tales of glorious resistance. The truth? Most people died. Slowly, horribly, from starvation, cold, disease, and bombardment. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Create that little cocoon of warmth and safety you're nestled in right now. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you're a civilian in Leningrad, September 8, 1941. The German Wehrmacht has just completed the encirclement of your city. 3 million people are now trapped inside a ring of steel and artillery. The siege has begun, though you don't know it will last 872 days. You don't know that 1.5 million people will die here. You don't know that you'll eat things no human should eat, that you'll witness horrors beyond imagination, that winter will become your enemy as much as the Germans. All you know right now is that the city is surrounded, food is being rationed, and everyone is telling you this will be over soon. They're lying. Let's find out what really happens. Chapter 1. The morning you realize you're trapped. So you wake up on September 9th, 1941, in your communal apartment in central Leningrad. It's a kommunalka, one of those massive pre-revolutionary apartments that's been subdivided to house 6 families where one family used to live. You share a kitchen with 5 other families. You share one bathroom with 23 people. Your family's room is actually part of what used to be a ballroom, divided by thin walls that don't reach the ceiling. You can hear everything. The Petrovs arguing. The Sokolovs' baby crying. Old man Dmitri's tuberculosis cough. This is normal. This has been your life for years. But this morning is different. You can hear it in the voices. Everyone is talking about the announcement from yesterday. The city is surrounded. Completely surrounded. The Germans hold everything south and west. The Finns hold everything north. Lake Ladoga is to the east, and that's it. That's your only connection to the outside world, and it's 60 miles away through German artillery range. You get out of bed. A narrow cot with a thin mattress that's lost all its padding. The room is cold even though it's early September. The morning light comes through windows that haven't been cleaned in months because cleaning supplies are already scarce. You can see dust motes floating in the weak sunlight, and for a moment, just a moment, everything feels almost normal. Then you remember. You're trapped. You and 3 million other people are trapped in a city that's about to become a mass grave. The smell in the kommunalka is the usual morning smell. Yesterday's cabbage soup, unwashed bodies, the mildew that's growing in the corners where the walls are damp, tobacco smoke from the men who are already awake and smoking. There's an underlying smell of plaster and old wood and human occupation that's just the smell of Soviet urban life. You barely notice it anymore. You've lived with it so long it's become invisible to your nose. You dress in the same clothes you wore yesterday. Water is already precious, so washing clothes happens maybe once a week if you're lucky. Your dress, because you're a woman, let's say you're 32 years old, married, 2 children, is simple, dark, made from fabric that was never quite good quality and now shows years of wear. Your shoes are worn but still functional. Hold on to those shoes. They'll matter more than you can imagine. The kitchen is chaos. 6 families trying to use 2 burners and 1 small oven. Everyone has their designated cooking time, but desperation is already making people aggressive. The Ivanovs are trying to make kasha with the last of their grain. Mrs. Sokolova is boiling water for tea, real tea, not the sawdust substitute that's becoming common. You need to heat water for your children, but your time slot isn't for another hour. You wait. Everyone waits. Waiting becomes a fundamental skill of siege life. The ration cards were distributed yesterday. You look at yours, a small piece of cardboard with stamps for bread, for grain, for meat, for sugar, for fats. The amounts listed seem small but survivable. 400 grams of bread per day for workers. 200 grams for dependents. Some grain. Tiny amounts of meat and fat. You do the math in your head. It's not much, but people have lived on less. This will be fine. The siege will end soon. Everyone says so. They're wrong. Those rations will be cut. And cut again. And cut again. By December, you'll be getting 125 grams of bread per day. A piece the size of a bar of soap, made mostly of sawdust and cellulose. But you don't know that yet. Your husband left 2 hours ago for his shift at the Kirov factory. He's manufacturing tank parts. Essential work. That's why he gets the higher ration. Your children, Katya, age 9, and Mikhail, age 5, are still sleeping. Let them sleep. Sleep is free. Sleep doesn't require calories. Soon you'll encourage sleeping as much as possible to conserve energy. You walk to the window and look out at the street. Nevsky Prospect is visible from here, the grand avenue that cuts through central Leningrad, once the most fashionable street in Imperial Russia. Now it's full of people queuing. Always queuing. Lines for bread. Lines for water. Lines for information. Lines for ration card registration. The Soviet system runs on queues, and now there are more queues than ever. The city looks almost normal from up here. The buildings are still standing. The streetcars are still running. You can hear one clanging past right now. People are going about their business with that particular Soviet determination that mixes stoicism with resignation. But there's tension in the air. You can feel it even from the 5th floor. Everyone is walking faster. Everyone is looking around more. Everyone knows something terrible is beginning. You hear the first artillery shell of the day around 7 a.m. It's distant, maybe 5-6 blocks away. A dull crump sound, followed by the faint rumble of a building collapsing. Then silence. Then another shell. Then another. This becomes the rhythm of your life. Random bombardment. No warning. No air raid sirens yet, those will come later. Just shells falling from the sky, turning buildings into rubble, turning people into corpses. Nobody screams anymore. That's what you notice. When the shells were new, people screamed. Now they just pause, assess whether they're in immediate danger, and continue with whatever they were doing. You're already adapting to siege mentality. Keep moving, keep functioning, survive today and worry about tomorrow when it comes. Your daughter Katya appears in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mama, I'm hungry. Of course she is. She's always hungry. Children are always hungry. You have a small piece of bread saved from yesterday, maybe 50 grams. You give it to her. She eats it in tiny bites, making it last. A skill she's already learning at age 9. Your son Mikhail wakes up and wants bread too. You have nothing left to give him. Later, you promise. We'll get our rations later. This is day 2 of the siege. You still have hope. You still believe this will end soon. The Red Army will break through. The Germans will be pushed back. Leningrad is too important to abandon. It's the birthplace of the revolution, the second city of the Soviet Union, home to millions. Stalin will save you. The party will provide. Everything will be fine. None of this is true. But you don't know that yet. You don't know that you're at the beginning of 872 days of slow horror. You don't know that the dead will pile up in the streets because there aren't enough living people to bury them. You don't know that you'll eat things that aren't food, that you'll watch your children's bodies slowly consume themselves, that winter will kill more people than German shells. Right now, you just know you're hungry, you're scared, and you need to go stand in line for your bread ration. So you put on your coat. It's not cold yet, but it will be, and you want to get used to wearing it now, and you head out into the besieged city. 3 million people all trapped together, all trying to survive. Let's see how that actually works. Chapter 2. The bread line and the mathematics of starvation. Let's talk about bread. Because for the next 872 days, bread becomes the only thing that matters. It's your currency, your fuel, your life. Everything else, family, dignity, morality, comes second to bread. You're standing in line outside the bakery on Sadovaya Street. It's 8 a.m. and the line already stretches around the block. 200 people, maybe more. Everyone is holding their ration card like it's the most precious object in the world. Because it is. Lose your ration card and you don't eat. Simple as that. There's no replacement. The bureaucracy doesn't have time for mistakes. Your card has your name, your registration number, and those precious stamps. Each stamp is good for 1 day's ration. Use a stamp and it gets marked. Try to use it twice and you're arrested. Ration card fraud is a capital offense. The line moves slowly, agonizingly slowly. The bakery opens at 8, but they're not ready. They're never ready. The bread comes out of the ovens in batches. You wait for your batch. The smell is overwhelming. Hot bread, yeast, that warm, comforting smell that humans have been responding to for 10,000 years. Your stomach clenches. Your mouth waters. You haven't eaten since yesterday's small portion of kasha. 14 hours without food. Your body is already starting to complain. The bread you'll receive is called siege bread or blockade bread, though nobody's calling it that yet. Early in the siege, it's actual bread, rye flour, water, salt, yeast. It's dark and dense, but it's real bread. Each person gets their allotted grams sliced from a large loaf. The baker weighs it carefully. Every gram matters. If you're a worker, you get 400 grams, about 2 thick slices. If you're a dependent like your children, 200 grams, 1 slice. 400 grams of bread is about 1,000 calories. Your body needs roughly 2,000 calories per day to maintain basic function. See the problem? You're already in caloric deficit, and this is early September, when rations are still relatively generous. By December, your bread ration will be 125 grams. That's 300 calories. Your body will need to find the other 1,700 calories per day from somewhere. Spoiler alert, it will start eating itself. But that's future horror. Right now, you're watching the woman in front of you receive her bread. She clutches it to her chest like a baby. She's crying. You're not sure why until you realize her stamp was supposed to be good for yesterday, but she couldn't make it to the bakery. She stood in line all day, but the bread ran out before she reached the counter. So she went without food yesterday. This bread represents her first calories in 36 hours. Your turn. You present your card. The baker, a woman in her 50s, flour dust in her hair, exhaustion in her eyes, marks your stamp with an official stamp and a pencil. She weighs your portion, 400 grams. She hands it to you wrapped in newspaper, still slightly warm. The warmth transfers through the paper to your hands. You want to eat it right now, right here, all of it. Just tear into it and fill your mouth with that warm, yeasty, life-giving substance. But you don't, because you're a mother and your children need to eat. So you carefully unwrap one corner and tear off about 50 grams, a piece the size of your palm. You eat this slowly, savoring every bite. The texture is rough, gritty. The taste is sour and earthy. It's the most delicious thing you've ever eaten. Each chew releases a tiny burst of flavor. Each swallow satisfies some deep primitive need. This is survival. This is life continuing for one more day. The remaining 350 grams goes back in the newspaper. You'll divide this carefully at home. Some for your husband when he returns from the factory. Some for Katya. Some for Mikhail. Some for you. You'll make it last the entire day. Each person gets their portion at designated times: morning, noon, evening. Never all at once. Stretch it out. Make it last. Walking home, you're acutely aware of the bread in your hands. Everyone on the street is looking at it. Not overtly, Soviet citizens are good at pretending not to notice things. But you can feel their eyes. You can feel their hunger. The bread isn't safe until it's inside your apartment, divided, partially eaten. Stories are already circulating about bread being stolen, about people being attacked for their rations. You walk faster. The streets are littered with posters. Citizens, in conditions of siege, especially preserve your ration cards. Wasteful spending of food products is helping the enemy. Everyone to the defense of Leningrad. The propaganda is constant. The Soviet state is very good at propaganda, less good at feeding people. At home, you divide the bread. Your husband Dmitry gets 100 grams. He needs it for his factory work. Katya gets 50 grams. Mikhail gets 50 grams. You keep 150 grams for yourself. This seems fair. This seems survivable. You eat your morning portion, maybe 30 grams. You save the rest for later. But the hunger doesn't go away. That's the thing nobody tells you about starvation. It's not that you eat and feel satisfied for a while. You eat your tiny portion and 5 minutes later you're just as hungry as before. Your stomach is a howling void that cannot be filled with 30 grams of bread. Your body is screaming for more. More calories. More energy. More food. You ignore it. Everyone ignores it. The entire city is walking around with this gnawing hunger. 3 million people with empty stomachs, getting emptier. This is day 2. The hunger is manageable. Uncomfortable but manageable. In 3 months, the hunger will be madness. People will do anything for food. Anything. But you don't know that yet. The mathematics of starvation are simple and brutal. Your body is a machine that requires fuel. Without adequate fuel, it starts breaking down its own tissues for energy. First it burns through your fat reserves. Then it starts on muscle. Then it begins consuming organs. Your heart shrinks. Your liver shrinks. Your brain, your precious, energy-intensive brain, starts shutting down non-essential functions. Memory goes. Complex reasoning goes. Eventually, everything goes. You become a walking skeleton, held together by skin and the faint hope of tomorrow. This process takes months. The human body is remarkably resilient and remarkably stubborn about dying. You can survive on a starvation diet for a surprisingly long time if you're careful. The Leningrad survivors prove this. Some people make it through the entire 872 days on near-starvation rations. But the cost is enormous. Physical damage. Psychological damage. The body and mind never fully recover. Here's what the rations actually provide over time. September 1941, 1,000 calories per day for workers. November 1941, 700 calories per day. December 1941, 400 calories per day. January-February 1942, 300 calories per day. The worst months. Spring 1942, gradually increasing but never adequate. 1943 to 1944, still rationed but slightly better. Your body needs 2,000 calories. You're getting 400. The deficit is 1,600 calories per day. Over a month, that's a 48,000 calorie deficit. 1 pound of body fat contains roughly 3,500 calories. You're losing about 14 pounds per month. Except you don't have much fat to begin with. You're a Soviet citizen in 1941, not exactly well-fed to start with. So your body starts eating muscle. You become weak. You can barely walk. Every movement requires calculation. Do I have enough energy for this? Is it worth it? And through all of this, you keep standing in bread lines. Every day. No matter how weak you become. No matter how cold it gets. No matter how many shells are falling. Because the bread line means life. Missing the bread line means death. It's that simple. The mathematics of starvation reduce everything to brutal clarity. Get food or die. Everything else is commentary. Tomorrow you'll stand in line again. For 872 days. Let's talk about what else you're eating besides bread. Chapter 3. Eating things that aren't food. So the bread isn't enough. Obviously it's not enough. You figured that out by day 3 when your stomach stopped growling and started this continuous hollow ache that never stops. Your body is screaming for calories from any source. And you're going to find them in places you never imagined. Let's start with what's officially available. Besides bread, your ration card theoretically entitles you to grain, usually buckwheat or millet 300 grams per month. Meat, 600 grams per month. Fats, usually sunflower oil or lard 200 grams per month. Sugar, 300 grams per month. Sounds almost reasonable, right? Here's the problem. The stores don't have these items. The meat might be available once a month if you're lucky. The fats are often ersatz, petroleum-based products that technically contain calories but taste like industrial waste. The sugar runs out immediately. The grain is usually moldy or infested with weevils. You eat it anyway. The weevils are protein. So you start improvising. Everyone starts improvising. The siege creates a black market in substances that can technically be eaten. Technically is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Carpenter's glue. Let's start there. Carpenter's glue is made from animal bones and connective tissue. Contains calories, not many, but some. People are boiling down old furniture, scraping glue off of walls, breaking into workshops to steal glue pots. You boil the glue in water until it dissolves into a cloudy, foul-tasting liquid. You drink this. Tastes like death and chemicals, but it's calories. Your children gag on it. You force them to drink it anyway. Survival doesn't care about taste. Leather. Leather is made from animal hide. Animal hide is technically organic matter. You can boil leather into a gelatinous substance that your body can partially digest. People are eating their shoes, their belts, book bindings, anything leather. You soak it for days to soften it. You boil it for hours. You end up with a gray, slimy substance that looks like congealed fat and tastes like tanned hide and chemicals. You eat it with your bread to make the bread last longer. The texture makes you gag. You eat it anyway. Wallpaper paste. The old wallpaper in the communalka is held up with flour-based paste. Some enterprising soul figures this out. Within a week, everyone is scraping wallpaper off walls, soaking it, straining out the paper, and drinking the paste water. It's marginally nutritious. It's disgusting. You drink it. Cottonseed cake. This is industrial waste. The compressed residue left after cotton seeds are processed for oil. It's not meant for human consumption. It's meant for fertilizer or animal feed. It contains toxic compounds that can cause paralysis if eaten in large quantities. The Soviet authorities start distributing it anyway because it's better than nothing. You learn to process it, soak it, boil it multiple times to remove some of the toxins, mix it with bread to make the bread more filling. The cottonseed cake has an intensely bitter taste and a gritty texture. It makes you feel sick. You eat it anyway. Peat. Yes, peat. The partially decomposed plant matter that comes from bogs. Some people try eating this. It doesn't work, your body can't digest it. But desperation makes people try everything. Grease. Any kind of grease. Machine oil if you can somehow remove the worst of the petroleum components. Linseed oil from paint. Tallow from industrial applications. People are scraping grease off of machinery, out of drains, from anywhere it accumulates. You heat it to liquid, strain out the solids, and consume it. It's calories. Your body desperately needs fats. The taste is industrial and chemical. It makes you vomit sometimes. You try again. The birds are long gone. Pigeons, crows, sparrows. Anything that flew was caught and eaten within the first 2 months. People are paying incredible amounts, trading family heirlooms, jewelry, valuable items, for a single dead sparrow. The sparrow gets boiled into soup, bones and all. Nothing is wasted. The bones get crushed and eaten for the calcium and marrow. The cats are gone too. All the cats in Leningrad disappear by November. They're eaten. Cat meat is actually pretty good, tough and stringy, but recognizably meat. People are paying a week's bread ration for a cat. You try not to think about whose pet you're eating. You try not to remember that the cat probably had a name, that a child loved it. You eat it because your children are starving. The dogs go next. Dogs are harder to catch, larger, more dangerous. But by December, every dog in the city is dead, butchered, eaten. Dog meat is tougher than cat but more filling. A single dog can feed a family for several days. People form hunting parties to catch strays. Violence breaks out over dead dogs. The Soviet authorities officially look the other way. Everyone needs to eat. The rats. Oh, the rats. Leningrad has always had rats. Every city has rats. But now the rats are also starving. They're eating corpses, eating garbage, eating each other. They're dangerous, disease vectors, aggressive when cornered. But they're also meat. People are trapping rats, killing rats, eating rats. Rat meat is gamey and tough and often diseased. You cook it thoroughly, boiling it for hours to kill any pathogens. You tell your children it's rabbit. They know it's not rabbit. Everyone knows. Nobody says anything. Rats are survival. The parks have been stripped. Every edible plant, grass, leaves, bark has been harvested. People are digging up roots. They're eating tree bark by peeling it, boiling it, chopping it finely, and mixing it with whatever else they have. Pine needles get boiled into a tea that provides a tiny amount of vitamin C. Every plant in the city is being consumed. The Kirov factory where your husband works has technical oils and lubricants. Some of these are petroleum-based and absolutely toxic. Others are plant-based and marginally digestible. Workers are stealing small amounts, a terrible risk since theft of state property is a death sentence. But starvation is also a death sentence, just slower. You take the risk. Your husband brings home a bottle of what he claims is sunflower oil. It's actually machine lubricant cut with some actual oil. You use it sparingly, a few drops to fry your bread ration. It makes the bread taste chemical and wrong. You eat it anyway. Calories are calories. Your body doesn't care about provenance when it's starving. And then there are the rations that aren't what they claim to be. The bread is no longer just bread. The bakers are mixing in sawdust, cellulose, cottonseed cake, anything that adds bulk. The percentage of actual flour in bread drops from 100% to 50% to 30%. By December, the bread is maybe 10% flour and 90% filler. It's dark, dense, heavy, indigestible. It causes terrible constipation or terrible diarrhea depending on what fillers were used. It tastes like cardboard and chemicals. You eat it anyway. The meat rations, when available, are mysterious. Nobody is sure what animal it came from. The texture is wrong. The color is wrong. There are rumors, terrible rumors, about what might be in the meat. You don't think about the rumors. You cook the meat thoroughly and eat it. You feed it to your children. You don't ask questions because you don't want to know the answers. Your body is adapting. Your sense of taste is dulling. Everything tastes the same anyway when you're starving. Your sense of smell is shutting down. A mercy, since everything smells like rot and death. Your gag reflex is lessening. You can eat things now that would have made you vomit in September. Your body is doing whatever it takes to extract calories from anything that enters it. You're losing weight. Everyone is losing weight. By December, you've lost maybe 30 pounds. Your clothes hang off you. Your face is gaunt. Your eyes are sunken. When you look in the mirror, and you try not to look in mirrors, you see a skeleton with skin stretched over it. This is what starvation looks like. This is what 3 million people look like. An entire city turning into walking corpses. But you're still alive, still functioning, still standing in bread lines, still eating carpenter's glue and leather and rat meat, still surviving, because the alternative is giving up, and you're not ready to give up. Not while your children are still breathing. Not while there's any hope at all. Let's talk about water next, because even water becomes a problem when you're in a siege. Chapter 4. Water, cold, and the death of plumbing. Let's talk about water, because you'd think water wouldn't be a problem. You're literally next to a river and a massive lake. But in a siege, nothing is simple, and water becomes another daily nightmare. September through November, the water still runs. Sometimes, the Neva River flows through Leningrad, and the city's water treatment plants are still functioning, though German shells keep hitting the infrastructure. You turn on the tap in your communal kitchen and water comes out. Brown water, suspicious water, water that tastes like rust and chemicals and something organic you don't want to identify. But it's water. You boil it religiously. Every drop gets boiled for at least 10 minutes. Typhus and dysentery are already spreading through the city, and contaminated water is the main vector. The communalka has one bathroom for 23 people. The toilet is a pre-revolutionary fixture, probably 50 years old, connected to a sewage system that's starting to fail. The system was designed for a smaller population with better maintenance. Now it's overloaded, undermaintained, and being hit by artillery. The toilet backs up constantly. Someone has to snake it out. Nobody wants this job, but it rotates through the families. When it's your turn, you use a bent wire coat hanger and try not to vomit from the smell. The smell in the bathroom is unholy. Sewage, obviously, but also unwashed bodies. Nobody is bathing much because heating water requires fuel you don't have. The Soviet Union runs on coal and wood, and both are rationed. You get maybe 10 kilograms of wood per month. That's enough to heat one room for a few hours a day. You don't waste it heating bath water. So people wash with cold water or don't wash at all. The smell of unwashed humanity becomes the baseline odor of siege life. By December, the water pipes freeze. This is the problem nobody anticipated. Leningrad is at 60 degrees north latitude, roughly the same as Anchorage, Alaska. Winter here is brutal. Temperatures drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. The pipes in your building are inside the walls but not insulated enough. As the cold intensifies and the building's heating fails, the pipes freeze solid. One morning you turn the tap and nothing comes out. Solid ice all the way through the system. Now you need to get water from outside. The Neva River is still flowing, barely. The surface freezes, but the current underneath keeps it from freezing solid. There are designated water holes cut in the ice. You take your bucket, a battered metal pail that weighs nothing when empty and everything when full, and walk to the river. It's 6 blocks away. In September, this would be a 10-minute walk. In December, weak from starvation and bundled in every piece of clothing you own, it takes 45 minutes. The riverbank is crowded with people filling buckets. Everyone is silent. Nobody has energy for conversation. You can hear the ice creaking. You can hear the water sloshing. You can hear the wind howling across the frozen expanse. The cold is so intense it hurts to breathe. The air stabs into your lungs like knives. Your fingers go numb within minutes despite the mittens. The mittens are wool, or they used to be wool before the moths got to them. Now they're more whole than fabric. You dip your bucket into the water hole. The water is numbingly cold. Bits of ice float in it. You fill the bucket maybe 3/4 full because you're too weak to carry more. The bucket weighs about 15 kilograms. Before the siege, this would be nothing. Now it's almost more than you can manage. You lift with your legs, not your back, because your muscles are wasting away and you can't afford an injury. The walk home is agony. The bucket handle cuts into your hand through the mittens. Your arm shakes from the weight. You have to stop every block to rest. Other people are doing the same. The streets are full of people carrying water buckets, all moving in slow motion, all struggling. Some people have sleds to pull the buckets. You don't have a sled. Sleds are valuable. People kill for sleds. You make it home. 6 blocks has taken over an hour. The water in the bucket has started to freeze. Thin ice crystals forming on the surface. You carry it up 5 flights of stairs because the elevator stopped working in October. Each flight is a mountain. Your legs tremble. Your breathing is ragged. You're seeing spots at the edges of your vision from the effort. But you make it. You get the water into the kitchen. This 15 kilograms of water has to last your family for several days. Drinking, cooking, minimal washing. You ration it carefully. You heat small amounts over your tiny wood stove, a makeshift Berzuyak, a little bourgeois stove that people are improvising from metal barrels and scrap. The stove is inefficient and dangerous. People die from carbon monoxide poisoning when the ventilation is inadequate. But it's all you have. The wood ration isn't enough to keep the stove going constantly. You heat the apartment for maybe 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. During these times, everyone clusters around the stove. The rest of the time, the apartment is freezing. The temperature inside drops to match the temperature outside. Minus 10 degrees Celsius. Minus 20 degrees Celsius. Minus 30 degrees Celsius. You wear every piece of clothing you own. You sleep under every blanket, every coat, every scrap of fabric. You huddle with your children for warmth. Your breath freezes in the air inside your apartment. Frost forms on the inside of the windows, beautiful ice crystals that would be pretty if they weren't evidence that you're living in a freezer. The walls develop ice. Your bedding develops frost. You wake up with ice in your hair from your frozen breath. This is normal. This is everyone's life. The toilet is now completely non-functional. The sewage system is frozen solid. Even if it weren't frozen, there's no water to flush. People are using buckets. You do your business in a bucket, cover it, and when it's full, you carry it outside and dump it in designated areas. Except the designated areas are overflowing because everyone is doing this. The streets are covered in frozen human waste. The smell is horrific when temperatures rise slightly. When it's very cold, at least everything is frozen and the smell is muted. Bathing becomes impossible. You haven't bathed in weeks. Nobody has. The smell of your own body is overwhelming at first. Then you become nose-blind to it. Everyone smells. The entire city smells of unwashed humans, frozen sewage, burning wood, and death. That's the base smell, you can't escape it. It's in your clothes, your hair, your bedding. It's everywhere. Your hair is matted and greasy. Some women cut their hair short to make it easier to manage. Others just tie it back and ignore it. Men grow beards because shaving requires hot water and energy they don't have. Everyone looks like refugees, which, in a sense, you are refugees trapped in your own city. Skin conditions are universal. The combination of malnutrition, cold, and inability to wash properly means everyone has rashes, sores, infections. Your hands are cracked and bleeding from the cold and the constant exposure to water. The cracks get infected. You have no medication for this. You wrap your hands in rags and keep going. The cold is worse than the hunger in some ways. Hunger is a constant ache you can almost ignore. Cold is immediate and aggressive. It attacks you constantly. Your body is burning through what few calories you have just trying to stay warm. Shivering burns calories. Being cold burns calories. You need more food to stay warm, but you don't have more food. Your body temperature is dropping. You're becoming hypothermic, slowly, over months. Frostbite is common. Your fingers and toes go numb. The numbness should be alarming, but you're too tired to care. Some people lose fingers and toes to frostbite. The flesh turns black, dies, falls off. There's no medical treatment available for most people. You either survive or you don't. Children suffer most from the cold. Their smaller bodies lose heat faster. Your Mikhail is only 5 years old. His little body is so thin now, so fragile. He's always cold. He cries from the cold until he doesn't have the energy to cry anymore. Then he just shivers silently, curled up under blankets. His lips blue, his skin pale. You hold him, trying to transfer your body heat to him, but you barely have any body heat to transfer. You're cold too. Katia, at 9, understands what's happening. She doesn't complain. She's learned that complaining wastes energy. She just endures, silent and stoic, like a tiny adult. Her childhood is gone. She's seen things no child should see. She's experienced hunger and cold that will mark her forever. But she's alive. For now. Night is the worst. The darkness comes early this far north. By December, you have maybe 4 hours of weak sunlight, and the rest is darkness. Long, cold, hungry darkness. You lie in bed, fully clothed, under every covering you have, and still you shiver. Sleep is difficult. You're too hungry to sleep deeply. You're too cold. You drift in and out, never fully resting. The sounds of the city at night are eerie. No traffic, there's no fuel for civilian vehicles. No voices. Everyone is inside trying to stay warm. Just the occasional boom of artillery shells. The crack of ice as the river freezes and thaws with temperature fluctuations. Sometimes screams. You try not to think about what causes the screams. You try not to think about the people dying alone in frozen apartments. You try not to think about tomorrow's water carry. But morning comes anyway. It always comes. You get up, you put on your frozen coat. Yes, even hanging inside its accumulated frost. And you prepare to go get water again. Because life continues. Survival continues. As long as you're breathing, you have to keep trying. Let's talk about what happens when the bombs fall, because getting water is dangerous in other ways too. Chapter 5. When the shells fall. So you're walking to the Neva with your bucket and you hear it. That distant whistling sound that means a shell is incoming. You have maybe 3 seconds to decide. Drop the bucket and run for cover, or keep walking and hope it's not close. You keep walking. Everyone keeps walking. Because stopping, taking cover, hiding, that wastes time and energy you don't have. The odds of any individual shell hitting any individual person are small. The odds of dying from starvation if you don't get water are 100%. You take your chances with the shells. The German artillery is positioned in a ring around the city. roughly 15 kilometers out. They have heavy guns, 150 millimeters, 210 millimeters, even some massive 280 millimeters railroad artillery. These guns can hit anywhere in Leningrad. There's no safe zone. You could be in your apartment, in a bread line, fetching water, and suddenly a shell screams out of the sky and everything within 50 meters ceases to exist. The shelling follows patterns, but the patterns are unpredictable. Sometimes they shell in the morning, sometimes afternoon, sometimes all day. Sometimes they focus on the factories and shipyards, legitimate military targets. Sometimes they deliberately target civilian areas, the bread lines, the water points, the hospitals. This is intentional. This is terror bombing. The goal is to break morale, to make you surrender. It doesn't work. People don't surrender. They just become numb to death. A shell hits 2 blocks away while you're walking. You feel the concussion through the air. A pressure wave that makes your ears pop. You hear the explosion. A deep boom that rattles your bones. You see the cloud of debris and smoke rise above the buildings. You pause for maybe 5 seconds, assess that you're not in immediate danger, and continue walking. This is normal. This is Tuesday. The types of damage vary. High explosive shells create craters and collapsed buildings. Incendiary shells start fires, which are devastating because the fire department barely functions. No fuel for trucks, not enough men, no water pressure in the hydrants. Buildings burn and there's nothing anyone can do. People trapped inside burn to death. You can hear them screaming. There's nothing you can do. You keep walking. Shrapnel is the invisible killer. When a shell explodes, metal fragments spray out in all directions at supersonic speeds. These fragments can slice through flesh like it's paper. People are walking down the street and suddenly they're down, bleeding, dying, and they never heard the shell that killed them. The fragments hit randomly. There's no protecting against them except luck. You see a woman lying in the street. She's been hit by shrapnel. There's blood on the snow, a shocking bright red against the white. She's not moving. People walk around her. Nobody stops. This seems callous, but stopping means nothing. There's no ambulance to call. No hospital that can help. The hospitals are overwhelmed with military casualties. The woman is dead or dying, and you can't help her. Your children need you. You keep walking. The bombing gets worse at night. The Germans send aircraft, mostly Junkers Ju-87 Stukas at first, later other bombers. The Stukas have sirens that scream as they dive. The sound is designed to cause terror, and it works. That rising, wailing scream cuts through everything. You hear it and you know bombs are coming. You have maybe 10 seconds to take cover. But where do you take cover? The apartment buildings have basements, but the basements are already crammed with people using them as bomb shelters. Getting to the basement from the 5th floor takes time you don't have. So you do what everyone does, you crawl under the bed or get in a corner away from windows and hope. If a bomb hits your building directly, you're dead anyway. If it hits nearby, being under the bed might save you from falling debris. The bombs make a different sound than shells. Shells whistle. Bombs make a falling, whooshing sound, the sound of a heavy object dropping through air. Then impact. Then explosion. The explosion is louder than shells because bombs are bigger. A 500-kilogram bomb creates a crater you could fit a house in. The building it hits simply ceases to exist. The buildings next to it collapse from the concussion. People inside are crushed, buried, incinerated. You learn to identify sounds. That's a 150 millimeter shell, you know from the whistle pitch. That's a 210 millimeters, deeper whistle, bigger boom. That's a Stuka, the scream gives it away. That's a regular bomber, the drone of engines, then the whistle of falling bombs. That's incendiary, the crackling roar of fire. You become an expert in the sounds of death. Nighttime raids are constant. The Soviet anti-aircraft guns fire back. You can hear them, a different rhythm than incoming shells. Boom, 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 boom. Rapid fire, trying to hit aircraft you can't see in the darkness. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes you see a bomber hit, trailing fire as it spirals down. Sometimes it crashes in the city, creating a new disaster. Sometimes it makes it back over German lines. You don't really care. You just want the bombing to stop so you can sleep. The worst are the incendiaries. These are small bombs designed to start fires. They scatter hundreds of small magnesium bombs across a wide area. Each one burns at temperatures hot enough to melt steel. They land on roofs, in attics, in apartments. They start fires everywhere simultaneously. The fire spreads fast. These old buildings are wood and plaster, perfect fuel. Within minutes, entire blocks are burning. You're woken one night by the smell of smoke. Not the normal wood smoke smell from cooking stoves. Chemical smoke. Fire. You look out the window and 3 buildings down is engulfed in flames. The fire is spreading. The wind is blowing toward your building. You have maybe 20 minutes before your building catches fire. What do you save? You can carry very little, you're too weak. Your ration cards. Your documents. A few photos. Your children. That's it. Everything else, furniture, clothes, books, memories, burns. You get your children dressed in their warmest clothes. You grab your cards and papers. You wake the other families in the communalka. Everyone stumbles out into the freezing night. The streets are chaos. Hundreds of people evacuating from buildings that are on fire or about to be. The heat from the fires is intense. You can feel it from a block away. The smoke is choking. The light is apocalyptic. Orange flames against black smoke against white snow. Embers are falling like snow. Some embers land on people's coats and start new fires. People beat out the flames and keep moving. Where do you go? The nearest shelter is a basement 2 blocks away. You carry Mikhail, he's too slow, too weak to walk fast enough. Katya holds your other hand. Dmitri is at the factory, he doesn't know this is happening. You make it to the shelter. It's already packed with people. You squeeze in. You wait. The building you lived in for 15 years burns to the ground. You watch through the small basement windows as the flames consume everything. The roof collapses with a shower of sparks. The walls fall inward. By morning, it's just a smoking ruin. Everything you owned except what you're wearing and what's in your pockets, gone. This happens to tens of thousands of people during the siege. Entire neighborhoods burn. The Germans drop incendiaries specifically to cause this chaos, to make people homeless in winter, to kill through exposure. It works. People made homeless in December die within weeks from cold. But you survive this night. The fire doesn't spread to the shelter. By morning, the fires are mostly burned out. Not because the fire department extinguished them, but because they ran out of fuel. Entire blocks are gone, reduced to charred rubble and ash. The smell of smoke and burned material hangs over the city for days. You're now homeless. Your family joins thousands of other homeless people looking for shelter. Eventually you're assigned to another communalka. A family died. Their room is available. You don't ask what they died of. You just move in. The room is 12 square meters. There's a bed frame but no mattress. There's a small table. Nothing else. This is your new home. The shelling continues. The bombing continues. People keep dying. The ruins pile up. Nobody has resources to clear rubble, it just accumulates. The city is being slowly destroyed, one shell at a time, one bomb at a time. Buildings that survived 300 years are gone. Historical monuments are ruins. The beautiful city of Peter the Great is becoming a necropolis. But you're alive. Your family is alive. You lost everything, but you're breathing. That's victory in siege terms. Tomorrow you'll go stand in the bread line again. You'll fetch water again. You'll survive one more day. Let's talk about the work you still have to do, because even during a siege, the Soviet state demands labor. Chapter 6. Labor, duties, and the factories that never stop. Here's something people don't understand about the siege of Leningrad. Work continues. The factories keep running. People keep showing up for their jobs even when they're starving, even when shells are falling, even when they can barely walk. Because this is the Soviet Union and labor is mandatory, and also because not working means lower rations, which means death. Your husband Dmitri still goes to the Kirov factory every day. The factory is producing T-34 tanks. These tanks are desperately needed at the front. The factory operates 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. Dmitri works the day shift, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 12 hours of hard physical labor while starving. He's a machinist, operating lathes and drill presses, creating tank parts from raw steel. The factory is freezing. The windows are broken from bomb damage and haven't been repaired. The heating system barely functions. The temperature inside is maybe minus 15 degrees Celsius. The workers wear fingerless gloves so they can operate the machinery. Their hands are covered in cuts and frostbite. The metal is so cold it burns when you touch it. The work is dangerous. Dmitry is operating heavy machinery while malnourished and exhausted. His judgment is impaired. His reflexes are slow. His hands shake. Accidents happen constantly. Men lose fingers in machines. Men pass out from exhaustion and fall into moving equipment. The factory has a morgue that's constantly occupied. But the quota must be met. The party demands it. Production must continue. Every tank built is another weapon against the fascists. The propaganda is relentless. Everything for the front. Everything for victory. The workers are told they're heroes. They're told their labor is crucial. They're told to work harder, faster, longer. Dmitry's ration is 400 grams of bread because he's a worker. If he stops working, his ration drops to 200 grams, a dependence ration. 200 grams is not survivable long-term, so he works, no matter how weak he is, no matter how much pain he's in. He works because not working is death. The factory has its own food system. There's a canteen that serves one hot meal per day, a watery soup, maybe 200 calories if you're lucky. The soup is made from whatever's available. Mostly it's water with some grain or potato scraps floating in it. But it's warm, and warm food is precious in the cold. Dmitry eats his soup during the lunch break, savoring every spoonful, and then goes back to work. The commute to the factory is brutal. It's 4 kilometers from your new apartment. Before the siege, Dmitry would take the streetcar maybe 15 minutes. Now the streetcars don't run regularly. No fuel. No electricity some days. So he walks. 4 kilometers while starving and exhausted takes over an hour each way. That's 2 hours of walking per day, burning calories he doesn't have. Sometimes he's too weak to walk. Then he crawls. Yes, crawls. Hands and knees on the frozen street, dragging himself toward the factory. Other workers are doing the same. The streets have people walking, people stumbling, people crawling, all heading to their assigned work, all trying to survive one more day. You have work too. Women and children are mobilized for civil defense work. You're assigned to firefighting duty. When incendiary bombs fall, you're supposed to help put out fires. You're given a bucket of sand and shown how to smother small fires. If a large fire starts, you're supposed to evacuate people and call for help that probably won't come. You're also assigned to snow removal. The snow in Leningrad is constant from November through March. Meters of snow accumulate. The streets must be kept clear for military traffic. So civilian volunteers, women, teenagers, elderly people, are given shovels and told to clear snow. You shovel snow while starving. Each shovelful weighs almost nothing but feels like lifting a boulder. You work for your 2-hour shift, then you go home and collapse. Children work too. Katya, at age 9, is too young for heavy labor, but she's assigned to help at a hospital. Her job is to carry messages, bring water, help move patients. She sees things no child should see. Wounded soldiers with missing limbs. Civilians dying from starvation. Bodies being carried out. She comes home silent and hollow-eyed. She doesn't talk about what she saw. She just eats her tiny portion of bread and goes to sleep. Even young Mikhail has duties. 5-year-olds are assigned to collect scrap metal. The military needs metal. Every scrap can be melted down and turned into weapons. So children form groups and search through ruins, looking for anything metal. They find nails, wire, pieces of machinery. They turn it in and receive a small bonus ration. Mikhail brings home 50 grams of bread one day, proud of his contribution. You praise him, fighting back tears. The absurdity is that normal Soviet bureaucracy continues. You still have to attend political meetings, still have to listen to speeches about the glory of the Soviet Union and the inevitable defeat of fascism, still have to participate in morale-building events. The local party committee still demands that people show up for these meetings. Most people are too weak to protest. You sit through an hour-long speech about the greatness of Stalin while your stomach gnaws at itself. There are quotas for everything. Factories must meet production quotas. Civil defense teams must meet snow removal quotas. Collection drives must meet scrap metal quotas. The Soviet system runs on quotas, and the quotas don't stop just because people are starving. If anything, the demands increase. Work harder. Sacrifice more. Victory demands it. Some people can't do it. They're too weak, too sick, too broken. When someone stops showing up for work, a committee investigates. If they're genuinely unable to work due to illness, they might be excused. If they're shirking, they're in serious trouble. Shirking is sabotage. Sabotage is treason. Treason is execution. So people work until they literally can't move. Then they die. The mortality rate at the factories is staggering. Men collapse at their machines and die. The bodies are carried away. The blood is cleaned up, the machine is restarted, and a new worker takes the position. Production continues. The quota must be met. Dmitry comes home after his shift and he's barely human. His face is gray. His eyes are sunken. He shakes constantly from exhaustion and cold. He eats his portion of bread, 100 grams, carefully saved for him. He drinks some hot water. There's no tea, no coffee, just hot water. Then he lies down and passes out. 6 hours later, he gets up and does it again. You watch him withering away. You watch your husband becoming a skeleton. His muscles are gone. His fat is gone. His body is consuming itself to stay alive. He's covered in sores that won't heal. His gums bleed constantly from scurvy. His teeth are loose. He's aging decades in months. But he keeps going to the factory. He keeps working. Because not working is death. And he's not ready to die. The worst part is that the work is meaningless in a cosmic sense. Yes, the tanks are needed. Yes, defeating the Germans is important. But individually, does it matter if Dmitry dies at his machine or dies at home? The tank will be built either way, someone else will take his place. His death changes nothing except for you and your children. But you can't think like that. You have to believe it matters. You have to believe that his work, your work, everyone's work is contributing to survival and eventual victory. Otherwise, what's the point? Why suffer if it's meaningless? So you believe. You have to believe. Belief is another survival tool like bread and water. Let's talk about something darker now. Let's talk about the bodies and what happens when the living can't keep up with the dead. Chapter 7. The City of Corpses. By January 1942, 4 months into the siege, the death rate is approximately 100,000 people per month. Let me repeat that 100,000 people per month are dying in Leningrad. That's over 3,000 per day. That's more than 2 people every minute. The city can't handle this. Nobody can handle this. The dead accumulate. You first notice it walking to the bread line. There's a body on the sidewalk. A man, maybe 40 years old, frozen in the position he fell. He's been there for 3 days. Nobody has moved him. Nobody has the strength or the authority or the resources to move him. So he stays there, a frozen corpse, and people walk around him. You walk around him. You've stopped being surprised by corpses. The bodies are everywhere. In the streets. In the hallways of apartment buildings. In the courtyards. Leaning against walls. Lying in the snow. Some are covered with sheets or blankets. Family members trying to give some dignity to the dead. Others are just left. The cold preserves them. They freeze solid within hours. They become part of the landscape. You can tell how long someone's been dead by the snow on them. Fresh corpse, no snow. A day old, light dusting. A week old, covered in snow, just a mound on the street. Some bodies have been there so long they're buried completely. You don't find them until the spring thaw. That's when the real horror begins, but we'll get to that. The official procedure for death is bureaucratic. When someone dies, you're supposed to report it to the local Soviet. They issue a death certificate. You're supposed to arrange for the body to be transported to a cemetery or crematorium. The body is supposed to be buried or burned. None of this works when 3,000 people are dying per day. The death certificates stop being issued because there aren't enough clerks. The cemeteries are frozen solid. You can't dig graves when the ground is frozen a meter deep. The crematoriums can't keep up. The morgues are overflowing. Bodies are stacked like cordwood in unheated buildings. Rats feast on them. The smell, even in the cold, is overwhelming. Your neighbor, old Dmitri from down the hall, dies in January. You hear his daughter crying. She's 16, now an orphan. Her mother died in October. She comes to your door asking for help. Her father is in their room dead. She doesn't know what to do. She can't move him by herself. She's terrified. You and 2 other neighbors help. You wrap the body in a sheet. He's incredibly light. Starvation had reduced him to maybe 40 kilograms. His face is peaceful. He looks like he just went to sleep. This is how most starvation deaths look. The heart just stops. No struggle, just silence. You tie the body onto a child's sled. Sleds are the primary method of transporting bodies. Thousands of sleds are being pulled through the streets every day, each carrying a corpse wrapped in whatever fabric was available. You pull the sled through the frozen streets. The daughter walks beside you, silent. Where are you taking him? The nearest collection point, a temporary morgue set up in what used to be a school. The collection point is a nightmare. Bodies are stacked outside because there's no room inside. Hundreds of bodies. Thousands. They're frozen solid, so they stack neatly like logs. You add old Dmitri to a pile. There's no ceremony. No last words. You just leave him there and walk away. The daughter cries silently. You have no comfort to offer. You just walk home. Some families can't even do this. They're too weak to move their dead. So corpses stay in apartments. They freeze. Everything is freezing. They become like furniture. You live with the frozen corpse of your grandmother in the corner for weeks because you can't move her. This happens. This is normal. The ration cards of the dead become a terrible temptation. Person dies, but if you don't report it, their ration card is still valid. You can use their card to get extra bread. This extra bread might save your living children. Do you report the death and lose the rations? Or do you keep the body hidden and use the card? Many people choose the rations. They hide bodies. They keep death secret. They go to the bread line with multiple cards. The authorities know this is happening, but they're overwhelmed. Some enforcement happens. Using a dead person's card is a capital crime. But catching everyone is impossible. The moral calculation is brutal. Your child's life versus bureaucratic honesty. Most people choose their child. There are also scavengers. People who search corpses for anything valuable. Ration cards, obviously, but also clothes, shoes, any jewelry, any food that might be on the body. This seems monstrous, but understand. Those items do the dead no good, and they might keep the living alive. You're walking past a corpse and you notice it has good boots. Your boots are falling apart. Do you take them? You don't. You can't. Something inside you still won't allow it. But you understand why others do. Morality becomes flexible during starvation. The rules that govern normal society dissolve. Survival becomes the only rule. By February, the cemeteries have created a new system. They dig mass graves using explosives to break through the frozen ground. Then they fill the graves with hundreds of bodies at once. No individual plots. No markers. Just mass burial. The Piskaryovskoye Cemetery becomes the main burial ground. Eventually, nearly 500,000 people will be buried there in mass graves. 500,000 people in one cemetery. The scale is incomprehensible. The workers at these burial sites are criminals doing forced labor, or people desperate enough to take the job in exchange for extra rations. They stack bodies. They shovel dirt. They work surrounded by death every day. Some go mad. Some become numb. All are traumatized forever. And some bodies are never recovered. They're in collapsed buildings, buried under rubble. They're in apartments where everyone died and nobody knows to look. They're under the ice of the Neva. People fell through weak ice while fetching water and their bodies are frozen in the river. When spring comes and the ice melts, hundreds of bodies float to the surface. The city has to fish them out. It's a macabre harvest. Children die in disproportionate numbers. Their smaller bodies can't survive starvation as long. They fade quickly. One week they're playing quietly. The next week they're bedridden. The week after that they're gone. You see children's bodies often. Tiny corpses wrapped in blankets, placed gently on sleds by parents who are sobbing despite having no energy for tears. Your own children are at risk. You know this. Mikhail especially, he's only 5, so small, so fragile. You watch him constantly for signs. Is he getting weaker? Is he eating? Is he responsive? Every day he survives is a small miracle. Katia is stronger, older, but she's still a child. The mortality rate for children under 10 is over 50%. 1 in 2 children don't survive the siege. These are your odds. The psychological toll of living among corpses is severe. Death loses meaning. You become desensitized. That's a body. So what? You've seen 100 bodies today. This is just one more. This is a defense mechanism. If you felt the full weight of every death, you'd go insane. So you don't feel. You shut down emotionally. You walk past corpses like they're street furniture. But sometimes it hits you. You see a corpse and for some reason, maybe it reminds you of someone, maybe you're just having a bad day, the full horror crashes through your defenses. That was a person. They had a name. They had people who loved them. They had hopes and dreams, and now they're frozen meat on the street. The waste of it. The senseless, stupid waste of all this death. You cry. Not for long, you don't have energy for long crying. But for a moment, you grieve. Then you push it down, wall it off, and keep moving. Because you have to. Because your children need you. Because stopping means joining the corpses. Let's talk about something even darker now. Let's talk about the thing that nobody wanted to discuss during the siege and that Soviet authorities denied for decades afterward. Let's talk about cannibalism. Chapter 8. The unspeakable. Let's talk about cannibalism. Because it happened. The Soviet authorities denied it. They covered it up. They executed people who talked about it. But it happened, and everyone in Leningrad knew it happened, and the silence around it was another kind of horror. You hear the rumors first in January. Whispered conversations. Did you hear about the Volkovs? Their son disappeared, and now they have meat. There's a woman on Nevsky selling pies. Nobody knows what's in them. Children are going missing from playgrounds. The rumors are vague, horrifying, probably exaggerated. Probably. You don't want to believe them, but the evidence starts accumulating. Bodies found with flesh cut away, missing limbs, empty apartments with suspicious stains. The NKVD, the secret police, start making arrests. People disappear in the night. The official charge is banditism or counter-revolutionary activity. The real charge is eating human flesh. This is never stated publicly, never acknowledged, but everyone knows. The starvation drives people to madness. By February, you're getting 125 grams of bread per day. That's maybe 300 calories. Your body needs 2,000. You're in a daily deficit of 1,700 calories. Your body is cannibalizing itself, consuming muscle, organ tissue, everything to stay alive. Your mind is affected too. Starvation psychosis is real. People hallucinate. They lose rational thinking. They become capable of things they'd never consider when well-fed. There are 2 types of cannibalism that occur: using already dead bodies and murder for meat. The first is more common and somehow less monstrous. You find a frozen corpse, you're starving, you cut pieces off and cook them. The person is already dead. You're not killing anyone. You're just using available protein. This is the rationalization. This is how people justify it to themselves. The murder cases are rarer, but they happen. Adults killing other adults. Adults killing children. The children are more vulnerable, smaller, weaker, easier to overpower. There are documented cases of people luring children to apartments and killing them. The NKVD executes these people quickly and quietly. No trials. No publicity. Just disappearance. The pies on the street corners become suspect. Before the siege, meat pies were common street food. Now, where is the meat coming from? There are no animals left. The official rations don't include enough meat to make pies. So what's in the pies? Nobody asks. Some people buy them anyway because they're desperate for protein. Others refuse, suspicious. You refuse. You will not eat mystery meat. You will starve before you risk eating that. Your family has rules now. Unspoken rules. The children are never alone outside. Never. Katia and Mikhail stay in your sight at all times. You've heard too many stories of children disappearing. You don't let them play in the courtyard. You don't send them on errands alone. The danger isn't just German shells anymore. The danger is other starving people who've lost their humanity. Some nights you lie awake thinking about it. You're starving. Your children are starving. There are corpses everywhere. Fresh corpses. Frozen meat. Nobody would know. Nobody would blame you. You could feed your children. You could save them. But you can't. Something inside you, call it morality, call it humanity, call it conditioning, won't allow it. The line is there and you won't cross it. You'll die before you cross it. You'll watch your children die before you cross it. This line is what separates you from the people the NKVD executes in the night. Not everyone has that line. Or their line is in a different place. Or starvation erased their line entirely. You don't judge them. You can't. You're not in their mind. You don't know what they've been through. You just know you won't become that. The official death toll from the siege is around 1.5 million people. The vast majority died from starvation and cold. But nobody knows how many were killed and eaten. The Soviet records are sealed. The NKVD files are classified. Estimates range from hundreds to thousands. The truth is buried with the bodies. There's a morgue worker who tells stories later, after the siege. He talks about bodies arriving with flesh methodically removed, thighs carved away, arms missing. The cuts are too precise to be from scavengers or rats. Someone who knows butchery did this. Someone human. You see a woman arrested on your street in March. She's being dragged out of her building by NKVD officers. She's screaming. There are no charges announced. She just disappears. Later, neighbors whisper that she was found with meat in her apartment. Human meat. Her daughter had died 2 weeks earlier. The daughter's body was never found. Do the math. The psychological impact of knowing this is happening, knowing that some of your neighbors have crossed that line, is devastating. You can't trust anyone. That person in the bread line next to you, have they eaten human flesh? The woman selling soup on the corner. What's in the soup? You become paranoid. Everyone becomes paranoid. The siege doesn't just starve bodies. Poisons minds. Children are told stories to scare them into staying inside. There's a bad man who takes children. If you go outside alone, you'll disappear. These aren't fairy tales. These are survival instructions wrapped in fear. Katia understands. At 9, she's old enough to grasp the danger. She holds Mikhail's hand constantly. She won't let him out of her sight. She's become his protector. The spring thaw makes everything worse. Bodies that were frozen and preserved start to decay. The smell is indescribable. Rotting flesh by the ton. The city reeks of death. And the thawing bodies reveal evidence. Cut marks. Missing parts. The NKVD has more work. More quiet executions. More unmarked graves for the cannibals. But here's something nobody talks about. How do you punish cannibalism during a siege? The people who did it were starving. Their minds were broken. They were trying to survive. Is it justice to execute someone for eating a corpse when the alternative was watching their children die? Soviet law says yes. Morality is less clear. You don't discuss this. Nobody discusses this. It's the great unspoken horror of the siege. People know. People see evidence. But talking about it is dangerous. The NKVD doesn't want panic. The authorities don't want demoralization. So there's this conspiracy of silence. Everyone pretends it's not happening while everyone knows it is. Years later, after the siege ends, after the war ends, survivors don't talk about this. When they tell their stories, they talk about the hunger, the cold, the bombs. They don't talk about cannibalism. It's too shameful, too horrible, too likely to be dismissed as propaganda or exaggeration. So the silence continues. The truth stays buried. But it happened. In that frozen city, during those dark months, some people crossed a line that should never be crossed. Whether you call them monsters or victims of impossible circumstances is a question without a good answer. You just know that you didn't cross that line. Your family didn't cross that line. That's all that matters. You survived with your humanity intact, even if barely. Let's talk about something else. Something that keeps you sane. Let's talk about the small acts of humanity that persist even in hell. Chapter 9. Humanity in Hell. You'd think the siege would turn everyone into animals, fighting over scraps, betraying each other for a crust of bread. And some people do become that. But others, most others, remain human. They share. They help. They show kindness in ways that are both tiny and monumental. This is what keeps you sane. Your neighbor, Mrs. Sokolova, her husband died in November. She's alone with 2 children. She gets the dependence ration, 200 grams of bread per day. It's not enough. She's dying slowly. Her children are dying. You know this. Everyone knows this. One day in January, you're eating your bread ration. Those precious 125 grams that represent your entire food for the day. Your children have already eaten theirs. Your husband isn't home yet. You're alone with your bread. And you do something that makes no rational sense. You break off a piece, maybe 20 grams, and you take it to Mrs. Sokolova. She cries when you give it to her. Real tears, which is remarkable because dehydration makes crying difficult. She tries to refuse. You need this for your children. You insist. My children have eaten. Please take it. She takes it. She divides it between her 2 children. They eat it reverently, making it last. This 20 grams changes nothing. It doesn't save her. She dies in February. But for one day, her children were slightly less hungry. And you feel something you haven't felt in months. You feel human. You feel like you still have the capacity for kindness. This matters more than the calories. The communalka you live in now, the one you moved to after your building burned, has a culture of sharing. When someone gets a tiny ration of grain or sugar, they share it with the other families. Not much. Just a spoonful. Just a gesture. Nobody is obligated to share, but everyone does. This keeps the social fabric intact. This prevents the communalka from devolving into a battlefield. There's an old man, Mr. Petrov, who's too weak to stand in bread lines anymore. Different neighbors take turns standing in line for him, using his ration card. This is technically illegal. Ration cards are non-transferable. But nobody reports it. Everyone understands. When Mr. Petrov dies in March, you feel the loss. He was a connection to normal life, to civilization. His death diminishes everyone. The library stays open. This seems insane. Who reads books when they're starving? But people do. The library on Nevsky Prospect, damaged by shells but still standing, maintains limited hours. People come to read. Not for entertainment. For escape. For a few minutes, you can lose yourself in Tolstoy or Pushkin or some pre-war novel and forget that you're freezing and starving. The librarians, elderly women, barely alive themselves, still check out books, still maintain order. This matters. Music continues. The radio committee broadcasts programs. Classical music. Poetry readings. News. Heavily censored. The radio voices become companions. You listen to the same announcers every day. They're starving too. You can hear it in their voices, the weakness, the pauses. But they keep broadcasting. They play Shostakovich. They play Tchaikovsky. They play the music that says, "We are still Soviet. We are still civilized. We are still human." Shostakovich composes his 7th symphony during the early siege, the Leningrad Symphony. He writes it while bombs are falling, while people are dying. The symphony is defiant. Says, "You cannot break us." When it premieres in August 1942, performed by a skeleton orchestra, musicians so weak they can barely hold their instruments, the entire city listens. You listen. You cry. The music says, "We survive. We endure. We are still here." Children still play when they have energy. Not like before, no running, no shouting. But quiet games. Drawing in the frost on windows. Telling stories. Making tiny dolls from scraps of fabric. Katia creates an elaborate imaginary world with her dolls. She gives them names, personalities, histories. This fantasy is her escape. You encourage it. Let her be a child for a few more moments before reality intrudes again. Teachers continue teaching in apartments and basements. Official schools are closed, the buildings are damaged or being used as hospitals. But teachers gather small groups of children and teach them reading, mathematics, history. What's the point of teaching history to children who might not survive the winter? The point is, we are not animals. We are human. Humans educate their children. This is civilization. You encounter kindness from strangers. You're pulling your water bucket back from the Neva and you collapse. The bucket is too heavy. You're too weak. You fall in the snow and can't get up. A stranger, a man you've never seen before, helps you. He picks up your bucket. He helps you stand. He carries your bucket for 2 blocks before he has to stop because he's also weak. But he helped. He didn't have to. He helped anyway. This happens more than you'd expect. People helping strangers. Sharing information about where bread is available, where water points are safe, which streets are being shelled. Strangers becoming temporary companions in the bread line. Sharing body heat in the cold. People are not generally monsters. They're people trying to survive while maintaining some shred of decency. The NKVD organizes volunteer brigades. Yes, the secret police who execute cannibals also organize humanitarian efforts. The volunteers go into buildings to check on people. They find the dead and arrange for removal. They find the dying and bring them to hospitals. They find the helpless and bring them food. Some volunteers die from their efforts, exhaustion, cold, disease. They volunteer anyway. Some people need to help. It's how they stay human. There are acts of mercy. When someone is clearly dying, when there's no hope, sometimes neighbors give them extra food. Not to save them, it's too late for that, but to ease their passing, to let them die slightly less hungry. This is kindness. This is humanity asserting itself against horror. Religious faith persists, though the Soviet state officially condemns religion. People pray in secret. Orthodox Christianity is the tradition, but all faiths are represented. People pray to God, to Allah, to whoever might be listening. The prayers are simple. Let my children live. Let us survive one more day. Give us bread. You pray too, though you're not sure you believe. Prayer is comfort. Prayer is hope. You need both. There are love stories. This seems impossible, but people fall in love during the siege. Young people especially. 2 starving teenagers find each other, find comfort in each other, promise to marry if they survive. Some of these couples do survive. They marry after the siege. They build lives together. They have children. Their love story begins in hell and survives. This is remarkable. Your husband Dmitri still shows you affection. A touch on the shoulder, holding your hand, small words of encouragement. You haven't been intimate in months. You have no energy, no privacy, no physical capacity. But the tenderness remains. At night, you lie together for warmth, and he whispers, "We'll survive this. We'll see spring together." You don't know if this is true, but hearing it helps. Your children still love each other. Katia shares her bread with Mikhail sometimes, giving him slightly more than her share. He's smaller. He needs it more. This generosity from a 9-year-old who's starving. This is humanity. This is what survives when everything else is stripped away. And you still have hope. Somehow, impossibly, you have hope. The radio says the Red Army is fighting back. The radio says relief will come. The radio says Leningrad will be saved. You don't know if the radio is lying. Probably it's lying. Soviet propaganda always lies. But you need to believe it. Hope is survival. Despair is death. So you hope. Every morning you wake up and you're still breathing, that's a victory. Every day your children are alive, that's a victory. Every small kindness you witness or perform, that's a victory. The Germans want to destroy you, to break you, to reduce you to animals fighting over scraps. You refuse. By remaining human, by showing kindness, by maintaining hope, you win. Every day you win. Tomorrow will be hard. Tomorrow you'll stand in the bread line again. You'll fetch water again. You'll burn your furniture for warmth. You'll watch people die. But tonight you're alive. Your family is alive. You're still human. That's enough. That has to be enough. Let's talk about time passing and seasons changing, because eventually spring comes. Eventually things shift. Chapter 10. The Long Wait for Spring. By March 1942, you've been under siege for 6 months. Feels like 6 years. Feels like forever. The winter has been endless, dark, deadly. But now, finally, you can sense change coming. The days are getting longer. The temperature is rising, still below freezing, but not the brutal minus 30 degrees Celsius of January. Spring is coming. You just have to survive long enough to see it. The spring thaw is both relief and horror. Relief because warmth means survival. Horror because of what the melting snow reveals. As the meters of accumulated snow melt, they expose bodies. Hundreds of bodies. Thousands. Bodies that were buried by snowfall and forgotten. Bodies that were dumped and hidden. Bodies everywhere. The smell is apocalyptic. Rotting flesh that's been frozen for months now thaws and decays. The city reeks of death on a scale that's hard to describe. You can't escape it. It's in the air, in your clothes, in your throat. You breathe death with every breath. People tie cloth over their faces, but it doesn't help much. The smell penetrates everything. The thaw also reveals the filth. Remember all that frozen sewage from winter? It's melting. The streets are running with literal shit, mixing with corpse fluids, creating a toxic soup. Disease spreads rapidly. Typhus, dysentery, typhoid, cholera. The doctors call it alimentary dystrophy, starvation sickness, but it's complicated by every disease you can imagine. Your immune system is shot from malnutrition. You catch everything. Survival is about enduring one illness after another. But there's good news. The ice on Lake Ladoga is melting, which means supply routes can shift from the dangerous ice road to boats. The road of life, the winter supply route across the frozen lake, was treacherous. Trucks fell through the ice. Drivers froze. Supply runs were deadly. But boats are more reliable. As the lake opens up, more food comes in. Not enough. Never enough. But more than winter. Your ration increases slightly, from 125 grams of bread to 200 grams. It's still starvation, but it's slower starvation. Your body stops its rapid decline. You stabilize at a new, lower equilibrium. You're skeletal, weak, sick, but you're not dying quite as fast. This is progress. Gardens appear. Every scrap of open ground is converted to agriculture. The parks, the squares, the front yards, all become vegetable gardens. You're given a small plot, maybe 3 square meters, in what used to be a park. You plant cabbage, potatoes, anything that grows fast and provides calories. The soil is poor. You fertilize with whatever you can find. The human waste in the streets? People use it. Composted corpses? Probably. Nobody asks questions. You just need food. The work of gardening is exhausting when you're starving. Digging, planting, weeding, watering, each task drains your limited energy. But it's hope. These plants represent future food. In 3 months, you might harvest potatoes. In 3 months, you might have cabbage. 3 months seems impossibly far away, but you plant anyway. Hope keeps you alive. The children help. Mikhail is fascinated by the garden. He waters carefully, proudly. Katia weeds meticulously. They don't fully understand that these plants mean survival. To them, it's just something to do. Something that isn't sitting in a cold room waiting to die. You encourage their involvement. Let them feel useful. Let them have purpose. The city starts cleanup operations. The bodies must be removed. The debris must be cleared. The streets must be made passable for military traffic. Volunteers are recruited. You volunteer. It's horrific work. Loading corpses onto carts, sorting through ruins, cleaning unspeakable messes. But it pays a tiny bonus ration. And it's doing something. You need to do something. Sitting passively while starving is mentally unsustainable. The cleanup reveals the scale of destruction. Entire neighborhoods are gone, just rubble and ash. The beautiful Baroque architecture of Peter the Great City is reduced to ruins. Historical buildings that survived centuries are destroyed. The human cost is matched by cultural devastation. But the city endures. The core survives. Leningrad refuses to die. Summer brings its own challenges. The improved food situation means fewer deaths from starvation, but disease is rampant. Without proper sanitation, without clean water, with millions of people weakened by malnutrition, epidemics spread rapidly. You're sick constantly. Diarrhea, fever, coughing, skin infections. You don't go to the hospital. The hospitals are overrun and probably more dangerous than staying home. You just endure. The bombardment continues. The Germans haven't given up. Shells fall daily. Air raids happen weekly. But you're numb to it now. The fear response has dulled. You hear a shell and you shrug. If it hits you, it hits you. You can't spend energy worrying about random death. You save your energy for the daily grind of survival. Your harvest in September is modest but miraculous. You pull up potatoes, small, misshapen, but real food grown by your hands. You get maybe 5 kilograms total. This will feed your family for a week. 1 week of slightly better eating. It's not much, but it's something you created. It's proof that life continues, that growth happens, that the siege hasn't killed everything. By autumn 1942, you've been under siege for a year. The worst is supposedly over. The death rate has dropped from 100,000 per month to maybe 10,000. That's still catastrophic, but it's better. Food supplies have improved slightly. Leningrad has established a new, grim equilibrium. People are still dying, but not quite as fast. This is victory in siege terms. But winter is coming again. The second winter. You know what to expect now. You know the cold, the hunger, the darkness. At least there's no shock this time. No false hope that it will end quickly. You're preparing mentally and practically. You've saved some wood. You've preserved some vegetables. You've patched your winter coat. You're as ready as you can be. The second winter is in some ways harder than the first. The first winter you had physical reserves to burn. You had fat, muscle. Now you're already skeletal. There's nothing left to burn except essential tissue. The second winter pushes you to the absolute edge of survival. Many people who survived the first winter die in the second. The cumulative damage is too much. But you survive. Your family survives. Dmitri is barely functional. He's a walking corpse, held together by willpower. Katya and Mikhail are stunted, damaged, but alive. You're all damaged, physically, psychologically, but you're breathing. You're still here. Time loses meaning during the siege. Days blur together. Weeks pass without notice. Months accumulate. You lose track of dates. You know it's winter because it's cold and dark. You know it's summer because it's less cold and light. That's the extent of your calendar. 2 years pass, then 2.5 years. The siege becomes your entire life. You barely remember what peace felt like. You barely remember full stomachs and warm rooms and safety. This is normal now. This is life. Starving, freezing, dying slowly while trying to maintain some shred of humanity. And then, finally, impossibly, in January 1944, 872 days after it began, you hear rumors. The Red Army is pushing back. The German lines are breaking. Relief might actually come. You don't dare believe it. You've been disappointed too many times. But the rumors persist. The radio confirms it. Operation Iskra. The siege ring is breaking. Let's talk about the moment everything changes. Chapter 11. The Breaking of the Ring. January 18th, 1944. You're in your apartment, huddled around the makeshift stove, when the radio announcer's voice changes. There's excitement in it, real excitement, not the fake propaganda enthusiasm you're used to. Citizens of Leningrad, the blockade has been broken. You don't believe it at first. You've heard promises before. You've heard relief is coming for 872 days. But the announcer continues. The Red Army has pushed through the German lines. A corridor has been opened. Land connection to the rest of the Soviet Union has been restored. The siege is not fully lifted. The Germans are still close, still shelling. But the ring is broken. You are no longer completely surrounded. People flood into the streets despite the cold, despite the weakness. Everyone needs to see for themselves, to share this moment. Strangers embrace. People cry. You cry. Dmitri cries. Even Katya, who's seen too much to be a child anymore, cries. Mikhail, now 8 years old, doesn't fully understand what's happening, but he can sense the mood. He smiles, the first real smile you've seen from him in months. The church bells ring, the churches that are still standing. The bells haven't rung since the siege began. The sound is overwhelming, joyous, defiant. We survived. We held. We endured 872 days of hell and we're still here. But nothing changes immediately. The Germans are still shelling. The corridor that's been opened is narrow and under constant attack. Food doesn't suddenly become abundant. You're still starving. You're still cold. The siege isn't truly over, it's just different. What changes is hope. Real hope. Not the desperate, delusional hope of the darkest months. You might actually survive this. Your children might actually survive this. There's a future beyond starvation and bombardment. This possibility, denied for so long, becomes real. The evacuations begin. The most vulnerable, children, elderly, sick, are being sent out through the corridor. There are trains leaving Leningrad for the first time in almost 2.5 years. You're offered the chance to send your children away. Katya and Mikhail could leave. They could go somewhere safe, somewhere with food and warmth. This is an impossible decision. Send them away and they might live. Keep them here and they might die if the siege continues. But you'd be separated. You might never see them again. What if they get lost in the chaos? What if you die and they're orphaned among strangers? Dmitri argues for sending them. They need to survive. Nothing else matters. You argue for keeping them. We stay together. We've survived this long together. The argument is bitter, exhausted, desperate. Both positions are right. Both positions are wrong. You decide to keep them. You can't bear the separation. Maybe this is selfish. Maybe you're risking their lives for your emotional need. But you're a family. You survive together or die together. This is your choice. Thousands of children do leave. They're loaded onto trains, bundled in whatever warm clothes exist, tagged with their names and destinations. The train cars are crowded, cold, barely heated. The children are terrified, but they're going to survival. Many do survive. They're scattered across the Soviet Union, separated from parents, some becoming orphans. But they live. Your children stay, and you pray you haven't condemned them. The food situation improves slowly. More supplies are coming through the corridor. The rations increase. By February, you're getting 300 grams of bread. By March, 400. This is still not enough, but it's survivable. The death rate plummets. People stop dying in the streets. The morgues empty out. Life, tentative, fragile life, returns. The thaw that spring reveals the full horror of what happened. The snow melts and you see just how many bodies were hidden. Entire streets are lined with corpses. The cleanup takes months. Trucks carry thousands of bodies to mass graves every day. The smell is indescribable. You try to avoid certain areas, but the smell is citywide. Everyone breathes death for weeks. You return to your plot of land and plant again. This year you have better seeds, more energy, more hope. The garden becomes larger. The city encourages everyone to plant. Leningrad is becoming a city of gardens. Vegetables growing in bomb craters, between ruins, in every open space. The gardens are defiance. The gardens are survival. The gardens are life asserting itself. Your children start recovering. With better food, their bodies begin to heal. They're still underweight, still stunted, still scarred. But they're gaining weight. Their eyes look less hollow. Mikhail plays sometimes, actual playing, running around slowly with other children. Katya smiles occasionally. These small signs of normalcy make you cry. Dmitri's health is worse. The factory work has broken his body. He's developed heart problems from prolonged starvation. He has trouble breathing. He can't walk far without resting. 38 years old, he looks 70. The doctors, when you can see one, say he has permanent damage. His heart won't fully recover. The siege has stolen years from his life. But he's alive. You're all alive. That's the miracle. Against impossible odds, through 872 days of hell, your family survived. Incomplete, damaged, traumatized, but alive. The Germans are pushed further back throughout 1944. The shelling decreases. By summer, the bombardment is rare. The city begins to rebuild. Not fully, the war is still ongoing. But repairs start. The electricity returns to some districts. The water system is partially restored. You have running water again. This luxury, turning a tap and having water flow, makes you weep. Life becomes almost normal. Not truly normal. There's still rationing. There's still hardship. But it's manageable hardship, not existential horror. You're not dying. You're living. The difference is profound. News from the war front is encouraging. The Red Army is advancing. The Germans are in retreat. Victory seems possible. The sacrifice of Leningrad might actually mean something. The siege held the Germans, prevented them from advancing further. The city's suffering was not meaningless. This is what you tell yourself. This is what helps you process the horror. By 1945, the war in Europe is ending. Germany surrenders in May. Victory Day. The city celebrates. There's joy, but it's muted. Too many dead. Too much trauma. The victory is real, but the cost was unthinkable. You survived the siege of Leningrad. You're one of the 1.5 million people who survived. 1.5 million out of 3 million survived. That's a 50% survival rate. Half the city died. Half. Let that sink in. 1 out of every 2 people you knew before the siege is dead. The siege is over. The war is over. Life continues. But you're changed forever. You'll never be who you were before September 1941. That person died in the siege. A harder, darker, more traumatized person took their place. This person survived. This person endured hell. This person is you now. Let's talk about what comes after and how you carry this for the rest of your life. Chapter 12. Childhood Stolen. Let's talk about what the siege does to children. Because watching your children suffer is worse than suffering yourself. Every parent knows this. But during the siege, you don't just watch them suffer. You watch them transform into something that shouldn't exist. Child-shaped old people. 9-year-olds with the eyes of veterans. 5-year-olds who've forgotten how to play. Your daughter Katia was 9 when the siege began. She's 12 now, in 1944. 3 years. Those should have been years of school, friends, growing up, discovering the world. Instead, they were years of starvation, death, terror. Her childhood is gone. Not just interrupted, completely erased. You watch her change month by month. In the beginning, she still asked questions. Mama, when will the Germans leave? Mama, why are we so hungry? Mama, is Papa going to die? You tried to answer. You tried to comfort. But eventually, she stopped asking. She stopped expecting answers. She stopped expecting anything. By the first winter, Katia has learned to be silent. She moves through the apartment like a ghost. She doesn't complain when she's hungry. Everyone is hungry. What's the point? She doesn't cry when she's cold. She doesn't react when shells fall nearby. She's developing what psychologists will later call emotional blunting. The inability to feel normal human emotions because feeling them is too painful. She helps without being asked. She takes care of Mikhail when you're too weak. She fetches water when Dmitri is at the factory. She stands in bread lines for hours without complaint. She's 9 years old doing the work of an adult, and her little body is paying the price. She's stopped growing. Her bones are brittle from malnutrition. Her teeth are loose from scurvy. She looks 6 years old, tiny, shrunken, skeletal. But the physical damage is less concerning than the psychological damage. Katia has seen things no child should see. She's walked past corpses daily for years. She's watched neighbors die. She's been present when you butchered a rat for food. She's heard the whispered rumors about cannibalism. She's experienced hunger so intense it becomes your entire existence. What does this do to a developing brain? The neuroscience won't be understood for decades, but you can see the effects. Katia doesn't sleep well. She has nightmares, though she won't tell you about them. You hear her whimpering at night. She startles at sudden sounds. She hoards food compulsively, hiding tiny scraps of bread in her pockets, under her mattress. anywhere. You let her. You understand. The need to have food nearby, to know you won't starve, is overwhelming. She's lost her trust in the world. Before the siege, children assume adults will protect them, that tomorrow will come, that life makes sense. Katia knows better now. She knows adults are helpless. She knows tomorrow might not come. She knows life is random, cruel, senseless. This knowledge at age 12 will shape her entire life. Your son Mikhail was 5 when the siege began. He's 8 now. He has almost no memory of life before. When you try to tell him about the time before, about birthday parties, about having enough food, about safety, he looks at you with confusion. This is all he knows. Hunger, cold, fear, death. This is his normal. Mikhail has developmental delays. He should be learning to read fluently, to do mathematics, to think abstractly. Instead, he thinks about food constantly. His mental capacity is consumed by hunger. When you try to teach him letters, he can't focus. His brain is running on maybe 500 calories a day when it needs 1,500 for normal development. The deficit is stealing his potential. He's small for his age, severely stunted. At 8, he looks 5. His growth plates probably closed early from malnutrition. He'll likely never reach normal height. His bones are soft rickets from vitamin D deficiency. His teeth are coming in damaged. His eyesight is poor from vitamin A deficiency. The siege is writing itself into his body, permanent marks that will last his entire life. But the psychological effects are worse. Mikhail doesn't play like normal children. When he interacts with toys, a stick, a piece of cloth, anything, his play is dark. His games are about hunger, death, siege. He arranges pebbles and says, "These are dead people." He pretends his stick is a shell falling. He's processing trauma the only way his young mind knows how. He's developed attachment issues. He can't be separated from you. If you leave the room, he panics. He's learned that people disappear and don't come back. He's seen it happen to neighbors, to other children. He's terrified it will happen to you. This clingy behavior is exhausting, but you understand. He needs constant reassurance that you're still alive, still here, still protecting him even though you can't really protect him. Mikhail has eating behaviors that disturb you. When he gets food, he eats it so fast he chokes. He can't pace himself. The fear that food will disappear overrides everything. You try to teach him to eat slowly, to savor. He can't. The compulsion is too strong. This will probably stay with him forever. Siege survivors often have disordered eating for life. He's forgotten how to smile genuinely. Sometimes he smiles, but it's performative, learned. Smile for mama so she feels better. Real joy is gone. He doesn't laugh. Children should laugh constantly. It's how they process the world, how they bond, how they learn. Mikhail is silent. The siege has stolen his childhood joy. Other children in the city are experiencing the same trauma. The schools that still function, makeshift classes in basements and apartments, are filled with damaged children. Teachers try to teach, but how do you teach mathematics to children who are hallucinating from hunger? How do you maintain discipline with students who might die before the next lesson? Some children become feral. Orphaned, with no adults to care for them, they form gangs. They steal food, scavenge corpses, fight each other for scraps. These children are growing up with absolutely no guidance, no morality, no structure beyond survival. What will they become as adults? The Soviet state will try to rehabilitate them after the siege, but the damage runs deep. The infant mortality rate during the siege is nearly 100%. Babies born during the siege almost all die. Mothers have no breast milk, you need calories to produce milk, and starving women produce nothing. Formula doesn't exist. Cow's milk isn't available. Babies die within weeks of birth. Some mothers try to keep their babies alive with sugar water or thin gruel. It doesn't work. You watch babies waste away, their cries getting weaker, until they're silent forever. Some mothers make terrible choices. They have to. When you're starving and you have an infant who's going to die anyway and an older child who might survive, who do you feed? The infant who's doomed or the child who has a chance? There's no right answer. Only impossible choices that will haunt you forever. Katia and Mikhail are the lucky ones. They have parents who are still alive, still functional, still trying. Thousands of children lose one parent. Thousands more lose both. The orphanages are overwhelmed, understaffed, undersupplied. Children in orphanages die at higher rates than children with families. Being orphaned during the siege is close to a death sentence. The children who survive will carry the siege forever. They'll have stunted growth, damaged organs, chronic health problems. They'll have PTSD, anxiety, depression. They'll have trust issues, attachment disorders, food obsessions. They'll pass trauma to their own children. Epigenetic changes from starvation affect future generations. The siege damages not just the people who lived through it, but their descendants. You look at Katia and Mikhail and you see the future. You see adults who will struggle their entire lives with what was done to them as children. You see people who will never be fully whole, fully healthy, fully happy. The siege stole their potential. Who would Katia have become in peacetime? An artist, a scientist, a teacher? You'll never know. Who would Mikhail have been? That person was killed by starvation before he had a chance to exist. But they're alive. Damaged, traumatized, but alive. After the siege ends, they'll have the chance to grow, to heal partially, to build lives, however broken. They'll survive. They'll have children of their own. They'll tell their stories, or more likely, they won't. Most siege survivors don't talk about it, but they'll carry it. Always. Every night, you check on them while they sleep. Katia curled in her blankets, thin and fragile. Mikhail clutching a crust of bread even in sleep. And you make a promise. I will get you through this. I will keep you alive. Whatever it costs. Whatever it takes. Your children. You deserve better. You deserve childhood. And someday, somehow, you'll have a chance at life. Let's talk about the nights, because the darkness during the siege is its own special horror. Chapter 13. The Endless Nights. The darkness during the siege is not like normal darkness. It's absolute, oppressive, filled with sounds you don't want to identify. Let's talk about night, because night is when the siege shows its true face. In December, at 60 degrees north latitude, sunrise isn't until after 9 a.m. Sunset is around 3:30 p.m. That's less than 6 hours of weak, watery daylight. The rest, 18 hours, is darkness. Cold, hungry, terrifying darkness. And you're trapped in it night after night, for months. The electricity is gone in most districts by November 1941. The power stations are damaged, the fuel is gone, the grid is failing. Your apartment goes dark. No electric lights. No street lights. The entire city is black. On moonless nights, you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. You have a few candles, precious, hoarded. One candle might burn for 6 hours. You can't afford to burn them constantly. So you light a candle for maybe 2 hours in the evening for critical tasks. The rest of the time, you sit in darkness. What do you do in 18 hours of darkness? You can't read, no light. You can't work on anything detailed. You can't really cook. Your little stove provides minimal light. You just exist. You sit in the cold and dark, trying to conserve body heat, trying to think about something other than hunger, trying to make time pass. The silence is oppressive. During the day, there's ambient noise. People moving, shells falling, distant sounds of the city functioning. At night, everything stops. The city is silent except for the wind howling through broken windows, the creaking of frozen buildings, the occasional distant boom of artillery. The silence is so heavy it presses on your eardrums. You can hear your own heartbeat, your breathing, nothing else. The children are terrified of the darkness. Mikhail cries at night. Quiet, hopeless crying. He's afraid of the dark. Afraid of being alone even though you're right there. You hold him, but you can't comfort him. How do you comfort a child who's afraid of the dark when the dark is 18 hours long and filled with death? Katia doesn't cry. She's past crying. But you can feel her tension in the darkness. She's rigid, alert, unable to relax. She's developed the soldier's habit of sleeping lightly, waking at any unusual sound. No 8-year-old should sleep like this, but she does. The cold is worse at night. Without the weak sun, temperatures plummet. Inside your apartment, It drops to -20 degrees Celsius, -25 degrees Celsius. Your breath freezes instantly. The walls are covered in frost. Your blankets are stiff with frozen condensation. You huddle together, you, Dmitri, Katya, Mikhail, all in one bed, sharing body heat. Even together, you shiver constantly. Sleep is fitful, broken, unsatisfying. You dream of food. Every night, vivid, cruel dreams. You're at a feast. There's bread, meat, butter, sugar. You're eating, filling your stomach, and it feels real. Then you wake up. The emptiness in your stomach is shocking. The transition from dreamfulness to real hunger is devastating. Some nights you cry from the cruelty of it. Dmitri has nightmares. He thrashes, moans, sometimes screams. You try to wake him gently. Startling a traumatized person can be dangerous. He wakes confused, terrified, not knowing where he is. It takes minutes for him to remember. Apartment, siege, family, alive. These episodes are increasing. His mind is fracturing under the strain. The sounds at night are terrifying. You hear things you can't identify. Crashes from distant buildings collapsing. Screams, human screams, animal screams, you're not sure. The wind makes the damaged buildings groan and howl. Sometimes you hear footsteps in the hallway. Who's walking at 2 a.m.? What are they doing? You don't investigate. You don't want to know. The rats are active at night. You hear them in the walls, under the floorboards, everywhere. They're searching for food just like you. They're desperate just like you. Sometimes they get bold, entering the apartment, looking for anything edible. You've learned to store food in metal containers hung from the ceiling. The rats can't reach it there. But they're scratching, they're squeaking, their presence is constant. Artillery is worse at night. The Germans know that nighttime bombardment causes maximum psychological damage. You can't see the shells coming. You can only hear them, that whistling sound that might mean your death. You freeze, listening, trying to judge how close. Then the impact. Then the moment of relief, not us, not this time. Then the waiting for the next one. The air raids are pure terror in darkness. You hear the drone of bomber engines. You hear the air raid sirens when they work. You're supposed to go to the basement shelter. But getting there in complete darkness, down 5 flights of stairs that are icy and damaged, while weak from starvation, it's almost impossible. Some people don't try. They just huddle in their apartments and hope. The bombs falling in darkness are worse than in daylight. At least during the day, you can see the destruction, assess the damage, know what you're dealing with. At night, you just hear explosions. You feel the building shake. You smell smoke and dust. But you can't see anything. Is the building on fire? Is it about to collapse? You don't know. You wait in darkness for dawn to reveal what happened. The psychological toll of the darkness is immense. Humans need light. Our brains are wired for day/night cycles. 18 hours of darkness disrupts everything. Sleep patterns, mood, cognitive function. You develop what we'd now call seasonal affective disorder on steroids. Depression is universal. Hopelessness is the baseline emotion. Some people can't handle it. They break mentally in the darkness. You hear about suicides, people jumping from windows, people hanging themselves, people just lying down in the snow and not getting up. The Soviet authorities don't talk about it. Suicide is shameful in Soviet ideology. But it happens. It happens a lot. You understand the impulse. Sometimes, in the deepest darkness, when you're so cold and hungry and exhausted that death seems preferable to another day of this, you think about it. Just stopping. Just letting go. It would be so easy. So peaceful. But you have children. They need you. So you push the thoughts away. You endure the darkness. You count hours until dawn. You make deals with yourself. Survive until morning. Just until morning. Then you can reassess. Morning comes and you make the same deal. Survive until tonight. Just until tonight. 1 day at a time. 1 hour at a time. 1 breath at a time. The darkness also hides things you don't want to see. The state of your apartment. The filth, the decay. The hopelessness of it all. Your own body, skeletal, ravaged, barely human. The faces of your family. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, dying. In darkness, you can pretend these things aren't as bad as they are. The darkness is a mercy in that sense. But morning always comes. The sun rises weak, distant, but real. The light returns. You can see again. The 18-hour ordeal is over. You survived another night. You get up, you do what needs doing, and you prepare for the next night. Because night always comes back. The darkness is patient. It will return in a few short hours and you'll endure it again. The summer nights are different. Still difficult, you're still starving, still under siege. But at least it's light. The sun sets around 10 p.m. and rises around 3 a.m. Only 5 hours of darkness. Those months feel almost manageable by comparison. The light helps. You can move around. You can see danger coming. You can maintain some small grip on sanity. But then autumn comes. The days shorten. The darkness creeps back. By October, you're back to the long nights. By November, it's 18 hours of darkness again. And you know what's coming, the second winter. The second round of endless nights. You're more prepared this time, but you're also weaker, more damaged, less capable of enduring. The second winter's darkness is worse because you know exactly what to expect. The first winter, there was still naive hope that it would end soon. The second winter, you know better. This is your life now. Darkness, cold, hunger, death. This is what survival looks like. And you have to endure it again. Some people develop strategies. They sleep as much as possible during the dark hours. Sleep makes time pass faster. Others stay awake, keeping vigil, unable to let their guard down. You try both. Neither works perfectly. Sleep is difficult when you're cold and hungry. Staying awake is torture when there's nothing to do. You talk to your family in the darkness. Quiet conversations. Dmitri tells stories from his childhood. Anything to fill the silence. You tell Katya and Mikhail fairy tales, though you edit out the parts about food and feasts because those are too cruel. The children eventually talk too. Their small voices in the darkness describing their dreams, their fears, their few hopes. These conversations are precious. Their connection, their humanity, their proof that you're still a family, still together, still caring about each other. The siege can't take that away. The darkness can't erase it. You're still you, still them, still us. And every morning when the sun rises, you feel a small victory. We made it through another night. We're still alive. We're still together. The darkness didn't win. It will come back tonight, but today in the light we won. Let's talk about what happens after, how you carry the siege for the rest of your life. Conclusion. So, how's your day been? You've spent 872 days trapped in a besieged city. You've survived on 125 grams of bread per day, a piece the size of a bar of soap, made mostly from sawdust. You've eaten things that weren't food, carpenter's glue, leather, wallpaper paste, things you'd rather not remember. You've watched 1.5 million people die around you. You've seen bodies stacked like cordwood. You've lived through winters so cold that your breath froze inside your apartment. You've been bombed, shelled, starved, and frozen. You've watched your children transform from kids into haunted survivors. You've endured 18-hour nights of absolute darkness and terror. You've made impossible choices. You've crossed some moral lines and refused to cross others. You've become someone you don't recognize. And you survived. Against all odds, against all reason, you survived. It's 1945. The war is over. The siege ended in January 1944, but the war continued. Now finally it's done. Germany has surrendered. The celebrations in Leningrad are muted. Too many dead. Too much trauma. But there's relief. It's over. You can start rebuilding. Except you can't really rebuild. Not completely. The siege lives in your body. Your heart is damaged, cardiomyopathy from prolonged starvation. Your teeth are ruined. Your bones are brittle. Your digestive system never quite works right again. You look 20 years older than you are. You're 35 years old and you look 55. This is what survival costs. The siege lives in your mind. You have nightmares constantly. You can't sleep through the night. You wake at every sound, convinced shells are falling. You hoard food compulsively. Your small apartment has hidden stashes of bread, cans, anything edible. Your family thinks you're being paranoid. They don't understand that you can't help it. The fear of starvation is permanently embedded in your brain. You can't waste food, ever. If someone leaves food on their plate, you become anxious, angry. Food is life. Wasting food is unconscionable. Your children learn to eat everything on their plates, even when they're full, because mama can't bear to see waste. This will shape their relationship with food forever. You can't handle darkness. You keep lights on constantly. The electricity bill is ridiculous. Your husband complains. You can't explain that darkness means death, that 18 hours of darkness almost killed you. So you just keep the lights on and let him complain. Dmitri survived, but he's broken. His heart is failing. He has maybe 10 years left, the doctors say. He can't work hard labor anymore. He takes a desk job, something administrative, something that doesn't tax his damaged body. He's 40 years old, and he's an old man. The factory work during the siege destroyed him. Katia is 15 now, in 1948. She's severely stunted. She'll never grow past 150 centimeters. Her teeth are damaged. Her eyesight is poor. Her menstruation didn't start until she was 14, delayed by malnutrition. But the physical damage is less concerning than the psychological damage. She doesn't talk about the siege. She refuses to discuss it. When people ask, she goes silent. She's built a wall around those memories. She functions. She goes to school. She does her work. She's even popular. But you can see the damage. She doesn't form close relationships. She doesn't trust people. She's always prepared for disaster. She has a survival pack hidden in her room, food, water, warm clothes, just in case. She's 15 and she's still living in siege mentality. Mikhail is 11. He's small for his age, delayed in development, but he's catching up. With adequate food finally, his body is trying to repair itself. He's growing slowly. His mind is developing. He's learning, reading, becoming the child he should have been all along. But the damage is done. He'll always be small. He'll always have health problems. He'll always have the emotional scars. He talks about the siege constantly. Unlike Katia's silence, Mikhail needs to process it verbally. He asks questions. Why did the Germans do that? Why didn't someone stop them? Why did so many people die? You try to answer, but there are no good answers. Evil happened. People died. You survived. That's all you know. The city rebuilds slowly. The ruins are cleared. New buildings go up. The population grows as people return from evacuation and new residents arrive. By 1950, Leningrad looks almost normal again. The scars are hidden under new construction, new paint, new life. But the survivors know. You can identify another siege survivor at a glance. The way they look at food, the way they hoard things, the way they startle at loud sounds, the way they have that particular hollowness in their eyes. You recognize each other and you nod, acknowledging shared trauma you'll never discuss. The Soviet government awards medals. For the defense of Leningrad. You have one. It's in a drawer somewhere. You never look at it. What does a medal mean when 1.5 million people died? What honor is there in surviving when so many didn't? The medal feels like mockery. The official narrative is heroism. Brave Soviet citizens defying the fascist blockade. Glorious resistance. The triumph of the human spirit. This narrative is partly true. There was heroism. There was resistance. There was triumph. But there was also horror, degradation, cannibalism, moral collapse. The official narrative doesn't mention those parts. You don't tell your story. Nobody wants to hear it anyway. The Soviet Union is looking forward, not back. The war is over. Time to rebuild, to grow, to prove socialism's superiority. Dwelling on trauma is bourgeois weakness. So you're silent. You carry the siege inside you, alone, unacknowledged. Years pass. Decades. Dmitri dies in 1955, his damaged heart finally giving out. He was 48 years old. Too young. But he got 10 more years than many. 10 years to see his children grow. 10 years of peace. It's something. Katia marries, has children. She's a good mother, but strict. Her children must eat everything. They must never waste food. They must always be prepared for disaster. Her children don't understand why Mama is like this. Katia never explains. The siege is a locked box she refuses to open. Mikhail becomes a historian. He studies the siege academically, objectively, trying to make sense of what he lived through. He interviews survivors. He compiles statistics. He writes papers. His work is partially therapy. If he can understand the siege intellectually, maybe he can control it emotionally. It doesn't work, but he tries. You grow old. The Soviet Union changes. Stalin dies. Khrushchev denounces him. The thaw happens. More freedom, more openness. People start talking about the siege publicly. Books are written. Memoirs are published. The silence breaks, slowly, but you still don't talk. What would you say? How do you convey 872 days of horror to someone who wasn't there? How do you explain what it's like to be so hungry that you consider eating a corpse? How do you describe watching your children slowly starve? Words fail. Silence is easier. You die in 1982, at age 72. You lived 37 years after the siege. Those years were marked by it. The siege was the central event of your life. Everything is divided into before, during, and after. Before is hazy. During is vivid, horrible, impossible to forget. After is survival, making do, carrying damage. Your grandchildren ask questions. Babushka, what was the siege like? You give them the sanitized version. It was hard. We were hungry, but we survived. You don't tell them about the darkness, the bodies, the things you ate, the choices you made. You protect them from the truth. Let them live without that knowledge. But here's the wildest part. You wouldn't be you without the siege. The experience, as horrific as it was, shaped everything. Your values, your priorities, your strength. You know what really matters: family, survival, endurance. You know what's trivial: everything else. Material possessions mean nothing. Comfort means nothing. What matters is staying alive, keeping your family alive, maintaining your humanity when everything tries to strip it away. You're a survivor. 1 of the 1.5 million. 1 in 2. You beat the odds. You endured the unsurvivable. You lived through 872 days that should have killed you. And you did it with your children beside you, your humanity mostly intact, your will to live unbroken. So tonight, when you're sitting in your warm home, eating your dinner, complaining about traffic or work or whatever minor inconvenience is bothering you, maybe think about Leningrad. Think about 3 million people trapped in a frozen city, starving, dying, enduring hell for 872 days. Think about families huddled in the darkness, trying to survive one more night. Think about children who forgot how to play, who forgot what food tasted like, who forgot what safety felt like. And maybe say a quiet thank you, because you'll never experience that. You'll never know what it's like to eat carpenter's glue because it's the only calories available. You'll never watch bodies pile up in the streets. You'll never endure 872 days of siege. You're safe. You're warm. You're fed. You're free. The people of Leningrad paid the price so you wouldn't have to. 1.5 million of them died. The survivors carried scars forever. They endured the unsurvivable so that siege warfare, deliberate starvation of civilian populations, the slow murder of cities, these things would become unthinkable. They proved that even in the darkest circumstances, humanity can endure, not unscathed, not unchanged, but alive. Sleep well tonight. You've earned it just by being born in a time and place where such suffering is history rather than current reality. The siege survivors didn't have that luxury. They paid the price for the world you inherited. Remember them, honor them, and be grateful that you'll never have to be them. Good night.